يا الطارش يا المعنى خط بكتابك الترحيب لو سرابه ليلك وجنة بالدجا في الليل.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Brothers and sisters, respected elders, guests, friends, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm your brother in Islam, Jalal ibn Saeed, and it is so, you know what? I'm going to tell you the truth. I am so tired. I'm so out of it. I'm totally faking this energy. But hey, you know what? Some of us can do it. So I'm going to do it tonight. I'm going to show you how excited I actually am not. I'm going to show you how excited I want to be. There you go. Long day. Everyone's had a long day, but I absolutely love Friday evenings. I was sitting with my boss after Jummah Salah today, and we were praying Salah. And after Jummah, after the khutbah, we had some little chit chats, and then my boss goes over to me and he goes, you know what, when you're involved in dawah, and I was like, yeah, that's the thing we do, isn't it? It's a lot of thinking, a lot of this. And he said, no, when you're involved in dawah, it's actually your place of release. I can see you're like life, and then dawah. It's like, this was the purpose. This is why we're here. And subhanAllah, what a beautiful description. It was perfect. It made me feel so happy knowing at 10 p.m. tonight, me and you, all of us, we're going to have a great time. We're going to benefit. We're going to praise Allah. We're going to have some good deeds. And most importantly, we're going to learn something tonight, inshallah. So I've got a bunch of notes here to share with you. Loads of points to make today. Yes, this is all about money talks. We'll talk about that a lot tonight. But it's also about iman, ikhlas, khushu, ihsan. So we're going to talk about brotherhood today a bit as well. Moving on, coming back, I want to open up the reminder tonight with our dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Inna alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nastahdih. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ما يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله رسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, my brothers and sisters, فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثات بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to another episode of Friday Night Live with myself, your brother in Islam, Jalal ibn Saeed, and our halaqah every Friday night, 10 p.m. right here on YouTube. Please click thumbs up, subscribe, and then next to it's a little bell. Click on that to turn on notifications. Otherwise, you won't know when we go live. As well as drop a text message. Take our phone number. I'm going to give you this number. That number actually does come straight to me. And you send your questions in. I'm not going to read YouTube, sorry, unless someone can text it over to me. So please do text me your questions. On the YouTube chat group, you're welcome to type whatever you like. You can have discussions, and you can also ask questions there. And one of the admins will copy and paste it over to me. But the phone number is actually for whenever you need to reach me, asking me questions, or if you have any issues, if you need any help, I'm your brother in Islam, would be more than happy to support you. But also, if you want to get involved in dawah, you want to support the dawah, you want to support us in the good work we do, that's another reason why you want to get in touch. So here's the phone number, 07958 183 184. If someone could please type that out in the YouTube chat, I'd be grateful. 07958 183 184. Also, we have a WhatsApp group where the questions are submitted. So you could just go straight to the WhatsApp group and send me your questions, as well as other discussions happen in the WhatsApp group. And I offer notes there and some other additional information. So it'd be great if you join that. If you don't have access to it, get in touch with us and we'll put you in there. Right. I have a wonderful guest with me today. Just going to give you a quick little piece of advice. And this is my new thing I'm going to start. Every Friday night, I'm going to just do about 2-3 minutes of a reminder, and then we're going to go straight to our guest to talk about the topic. Tonight's topic is money talks, Islamic finance, things like that. But first and foremost, just for a couple of minutes, I'd like you all to renew your intention. I'd like to do the same. We're here for the sake of Allah. We want the angels to surround us. We want the good deeds to be elevated into the sky. We want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us all of our sins. We want subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask him to have mercy on us, guide us and our families and all our relatives that have passed away. We ask Allah to forgive them, lighten their burden, remove all their hardships, pardon them, and enter them into the akhirah without any question. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Right, so my brothers and sisters, tonight, we're going to talk about, as you saw on the poster, that's right, money talks. I lost my questions. I'm so sorry. Just one second. This is in the, see? Okay, so brothers and sisters, we're going to talk about money talks tonight, and I have with me a special guest. And this guest, mashallah, I usually have guests that I haven't met before, haven't spoken to before, but this young man I've met a long time ago. I did meet him once, I think, way up north when I used to come up to Middlesbrough. So if anyone from Middlesbrough is tuned in tonight, a big salam alaikum. You're represented tonight, inshallah, with brother Ibrahim Khan. This brother Ibrahim Khan, he, mashallah, tabarakallah, he's got a BA in philosophy, politics and economics from the University of Oxford. He has ijazah, mashallah, in the memorization of Quran from Misr, from Egypt, and he has a master's in Islamic banking and finance from Markfield Institute. This brother knows what he's talking about in this subject, mashallah. He also graduated from the Alamiya program, which is the traditional Islamic scholar under the tutelage of Sheikh Akram Nadwi. We know him very well, mashallah, hafidullah. He previously worked as a funds lawyer in London at Devoice and Plimpton LLP, and before that he worked at Ashurst LLP, and he has worked with First Ethical on their halal, mashallah, I didn't know that. He has worked with First Ethical on their halal money strand and has lectured extensively on Islamic finance and zakat in masajid, universities and schools around the UK. He is also the co-founder of Islamic clothing, mashallah, tabarakallah. It's the brand designmolvi.com. I think, no, I didn't get this from there. Maybe another one, inshallah. So designmolvi.com with over 350,000 fans around the world. Mashallah, he quit his corporate career in 2020 to go full-time on IFG. Allahu Akbar. That is beautiful introduction. So without further ado, brother Ibrahim, salam alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for having me, Sheikh. It's an absolute pleasure.
Indeed, it's a pleasure for us as well. It's nice to have you here. It's nice to get to know you a bit better. You're not so young anymore, which means I'm probably a lot older now. That's what that means, mashallah. So we had a little bit of jokes earlier when we first signed up, and I'm going to admit that to everyone because I don't chit chat with the guests before the show to make it as organic and as raw as possible. So you get straight core conversation and nothing is filtered. Inshallah, it's the best way to get to the bottom of things and really understand topics. Now tonight, brother Ibrahim. So obviously everything's about money talks. The topic's about money. Money's a big fitna. Let's face it. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Ar-riba, the waging of war against Allah and His Rasul, interest, riba, it is a disease, it is a sin, a major sin, and it will be like dust, and it will fall upon the feet or shoes of every single believer, upon the shoes of every believer." I mean, we could say money is that dust. Without money, can you buy food? Without money, can you buy medicine? Can you go anywhere? Money is so crucially important. It is a fundamental need after the air we breathe and the health that we have. Without money, you can't even tend to health. So, subhanallah, it is the dust upon all our shoes. The reason why someone might ask, well, didn't the prophets of God have money? Yes, they did. But it's not this money. Well, what's the difference, some might say? And that's what Brother Ibrahim's here today to explain. What's the difference? In a nutshell, in a very simple layman's terms, and then Brother Ibrahim will complicate the heck out of it afterwards, and I'm sure then he'll simplify as well so we understand him, us laymen, when it comes to money. Well, let me put it to you like this. The money in your hand, in your pocket, is absolutely worthless. The money in the pockets and hands of the prophets of God and the Muslims of the past was gold and silver with value, with weight, and commodities you traded. Today, when you buy something for £100, you're really just giving a few pieces of paper. And now it's even worse because it's digital. It's as useless can possibly get. Unplug that big server in the sky and all that money is gone. So it's digital. This is the basic, the simplest I can put it, that money is a form of interest, is a form of riba, it is a haram thing, but it is a necessity. And the scholars, mashallah, may Allah bless them and forgive them in their mistakes, because we know when they're correct, they get 2 rewards. When they're incorrect, they get 1. The intention is sincere for the sake of Allah. So our ulama is who we turn to, and they tell us what is necessary. Out of necessity, we do certain things. So without further ado, Ibrahim, give me a really smashing introduction. I've said a few points, and I'm sure some of those you're going to say, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Bismillah, fadl.
No, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. It's I think it's such a vast.
Actually, Ibrahim, I'm so sorry, Ibrahim. I'm just going to go ahead and simplify this. Sorry. What I meant to say, and I should have said this earlier, is just simply, why is it so important? The Islamic finance aspect of it. Why is it so important? Why do we need to take an Islamic approach in this matter? See, I kind of went a little step ahead. Apologies. But it's actually a question that I wanted to ask at the end of all of that. So why is it so important?
Yeah, sure. So I think Islamic finance, if you think about it, the mu'amalat and transactions and money matters, they, as you were saying, they drive everything that we do in our life. If you think of it from a certain prism, we spend most of our lives going from contract to contract. So, the employment contract takes up the vast majority of our day life. And then you've got the nikah contract that takes over in the evenings and, all the other bits of our lives. And then we're going to the shops and we're entering into contracts. And money, if you think about it, is this, this weird lubricant that makes the world go round. And I think often we as Muslims, we have, we've got 2 kind of very different approaches to money. And I think both of those approaches are wrong. One is where, you think that money is you look at the people who care about money and you think, hang on, those people are not people that I really want to be associated with. Therefore, money itself just must be bad. And anything to do with money must be bad. And therefore, let's just avoid it. And, we're just going to live life, of austerity and be Puritans. And then on the other hand, you've got people who go the other extreme where they say, actually, what? I quite like money. It's all right, this. And then they go after it full-heartedly. And I think Islam is, somewhere in the middle, right? As it often is in all of these things. And I think the way to think about money is as a means to an end, as opposed to as an end in itself. And the reason, why I think we, I think these things interconnect. So employment, your life, money, all of these things interconnect, and it comes back down, I think, ultimately to our purpose in life, right? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create jinn and mankind except but to worship me. And it comes back down to this: why are we actually here? Because that then determines our approach to all of these problems. And the way that specifically impacts, I think, in particular, let's take employment. If we are approaching employment from a perspective of we actually want this to get us to Jannah, then we take it from just thinking about it as a check. So we're kind of 8 hours, we're out of the real kind of purpose of our life, to actually these 8 hours are actually our purpose in life as well. So the way I like to think about it is, if you're a corporate lawyer like I used to be, you can either see it as a just another day, another dollar, and you turn up and you do your job and you get your check, and then you go out and then you do your salah ibadah and you think, okay, now I'm doing stuff to get us to Jannah. But then if you just flick a switch and you think, hang on, this is actually, I've got this amazing time, 20 years of my life will be spent in employment. If I can actually make this as a way to learn skills that can potentially help Muslims and the wider community or the world at large in a way that will actually, further my purpose in life and get me closer to Jannah itself, then those 8 hours and that 20 years that we are spending in employment then actually becomes completely part of our purpose in life. It actually furthers us. And then I guess the same kind of analysis then applies to lots of other things, right? Our transactions, our savings and investments. Like, you'll be boggled at the numbers that we're talking about here. So Muslims are a quarter of the world's population, and yet we're about 20% poorer than
Oh,
the rest.
wow.
And if you look at the top 100 public companies, only one of them is from a Muslim origin country, and that's Aramco. That's the Saudi oil company. So it's not even, that's because of oil. And then if you look at the top 200 companies, there's one more company in there, and that's Sabic, which is an offshoot of Aramco. So, if you just think about where we are from a, wealth perspective, and the massively negative impact that has on us as a community, because there is a very strong correlation between wealth and representation in media and politics and health outcomes, education outcomes, all sorts of beneficial things, and yet we as Muslims, we think of our wealth as a very individual thing. We don't think about it as a communal thing, that actually doesn't matter really if we're getting wealthy for ourselves. It's actually more important, I think, to get wealthy or use our wealth in a wise way for the communal impact as well.
You mean like a waqf?
I think the waqf is super useful as well, but I actually think just our own savings and our own investment.
Oh, right. So as a collective body, but each individual person, each individual family, but as a collective body working to become powerful or making a difference together for something we all agree upon.
Exactly. And I feel we're just so leaky in that sense, because we don't realize the value of that wealth. Like, to give you a sense of this, Muslim marriages, I was looking at some numbers. We did a YouTube video on this recently where we found that the Asian population spends around 40% of all the marriage spend in the UK.
Wow.
And it's obviously a tiny percentage. And of that, Muslims are about half. So £2 billion every year is spent by Muslims approximately on weddings. Now, if you could imagine, if we just pared that back by about 75%, £1.5 billion could be used on things other than hiring a Rolls Royce, and doing something productive with it. And to give you a sense again what we could do with it, the Church of England has an endowment of $8 billion, £8 billion. So within about 5-6 years, if we just cut back on marriage spend, we could catch up with the Church of England, which is a very, very well-off organization.
Just by not having a Rolls Royce at the wedding.
Yeah. So it's like very like, it's a different way of thinking about, I think. Well,
I'm going to add to that. I do want you to know the good things of life and the good things in dunya don't get seen and mentioned enough, but the bad things are often populated, and the negative things are often allowed to be propagated. And the reason why is because negativity breeds negativity. It causes depression, it causes lack of morale, etc. So amongst Muslims, we need to make an effort to share the good things that most people don't know about. So, for example, I've noticed, certain people like us might be heavily involved in going town to town, village to village, city to city, and we're able to see more. And we will see things that you won't see on social media or on the news because no one's going to propagate those things. So I want the Muslims out there to know it's time to spread the word. The news is out. The wedding happened. They got married. They had the HALAQAH. They've got a kid. What am I talking about? Weddings. Alhamdulillah, finally, it's becoming a fad. It's becoming a fashion to have the wedding of the likes of Ali radiallahu anhu and the likes of Fatima Zahra radiallahu anhu. It's becoming a fashion to have humble weddings. It's becoming a fashion to, instead of spending money on a wedding, to take your family on a honeymoon, kind of, to Umrah, to Turkey, a place of learning Islam. And after that, the money left over, feed an orphan, dig a well, build a masjid. This is becoming the new thing. And it's our job to now propagate that, get that word out that this is the new fashion. It's actually happening. Loads of Muslims are doing this and it's not known. It's not talked about. And if we talked about it more and more, let's face it. Brother Ibrahim, tell me if you agree with this. Here's a kid named Khalid. He's getting married to Maryam. and they're getting married. The families are there. The Rolls Royce is booked. The hotel has got to be paid for. And the entire time, the families who are paying for all of this, their stomachs are turning inside out. And they're just nervous and constantly stressed. There's no enjoyment in that, which means they don't want to do this. They feel peer pressured into this. So and so did this, so we have to do better, etc. It's alhaakum takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir. For how long are you going to compete, vie with one another, and the dunya matters? Wait till I get you in your graves. You're going to reach your graves. Is that how long you're going to wait? So without this turning into a sermon, yes, a lot of Muslims out there are only doing that Rolls Royce mentality because they feel they have to. And they need to now be told, hey, guess what? The new fashion is to not get a Rolls Royce and to tell people and record yourself with a selfie. Check it out. Here's the Rolls Royce that I'm not going to rent. I'm going to give this money to this charity and that charity. That's the new fashion. I'm seeing more and more of that, mashallah, tabarakallah.
Alhamdulillah, I think that should be, so encouraged. And it's fascinating that you said, take that same money and do other things with it, because like if you're gonna, if you are going to want to spend, then what better way to spend than on that bride and groom themselves, like their honeymoon, rather than feeding 500 or 600 people the 3-course meal that they will remember for a short period of time. If you can strengthen that relationship between the bride and the groom, then that's lasting. That really has an impact on their life. And actually, we ran some numbers on this. And if you take that 20,000, 30,000 pounds that you save up and you just invest that for about 18 years, it can add up to something like 250,000 pounds, which we ran the numbers on that. And that pays for 2 to 3 kids' university fees, which, if you just think about that for a second, that means that instead of you taking out a loan and spending on this wedding and losing money, instead you use that money to take out of debt an entire generation, 2 generations of people, the kids and also the parents. I just think it's if you take it from that perspective, it's just such a win-win. And I'm really encouraged to see that this trend is happening, and because of COVID, it's probably exacerbated as well, because you just can't do it.
COVID weddings, COVID parties, COVID birthdays, COVID celebrations. It's just been awesome. It's just been so awesome. I mean, I'm a part of a key worker company, so I can't stay home. I've got to be in London. So when I'm traveling in and out, the roads, the streets, oh, it's so beautiful. You have no idea. It is so beautiful. I have to say, it's given a somber atmosphere in the air, and it's made everyone quite calm and humble. But brothers and sisters, don't take that for granted. It's your job and my job to start telling people that the sunnah, the lightweight nikah and wedding is what's most beloved to people. All right, so I got another question for you then. I've got a few questions for you. So let me just start with the next one. Let's talk about the 2 things that our ummah find the hardest to deal with, right? The 2 main issues that mortgages. This is a tough one with relatives, families, Uncle G's, and I have a specific elder that I love dearly. But every once in a while, when we haven't talked about mortgage for a long time and it's not been a debate or argument, in a conversation, they'll slip it in there. Like my sheikh so-and-so said, if it's necessity, then it is permitted. And also, if you're not paying interest and you're actually buying it out, you're paying them back, it's not interest. Just some nonsense, some crazy stuff, right? And an imam of a masjid said this to him many years ago. And it's hard to pull that back out now. Yeah. No matter how much dalil or evidence or knowledge, you hold on to what you like, isn't it? You like that. It was permission. And there's no permission in riba. There's no. So anyways, mortgages, number one. That's number one. Oh my God. Horrific. Mortgages. It's such a big fitna, but don't worry. We got to talk about it, guys. The less we talk about it, worse it is. Someone, there was a brother at work. He made a sound with his throat. Okay. He did like, okay, I'm not going to do it. But you know what I mean? Like when you try to clear your throat, it's really a bit nasty. And he made this sound, and this non-Muslim sitting there. It's a white guy. Sorry, I shouldn't say non-Muslim, but he's a white guy. So this is this English guy. He goes, oh, it's like that program. What is that with the Asians? Citizen Khan is the way he clears his throat. And I just laughed while other people don't like that program, get offended. I said, well, the Muslim community, they didn't like that program. Everyone's against it. And he said, why do they get so negative? Why do they like that? And I said, because it shows our dirty laundry. It shows how we actually are. It's the vast majority of Muslim families. I mean, it's exaggerated, but that's how it is. You have the practicing, the non-practicing. You've got the one that likes Bollywood, Lollywood, Jollywood, whatever. We have all that fatana there. So mortgage is one of those subjects. The second subject is student loans. Big difficulty there. Yeah. Student loans with interest. So what's the Islamic stance on this? I mean, is there really a difference in the difference of opinion? Is there a difference of opinion?
Yeah, sure. So on Islamic mortgages and mortgages generally, I guess, there's I'd say three camps that broadly you see. One camp says that because of necessity and the old opinion of Sheikh Qaradawi and the European Council that mortgages and you can take out a mortgage for one house because you need to get on, and that's obviously, it was a very dated. There was a dated fatwa given back in a time when there were no Islamic alternatives available. So that's one camp which say that just everything's fine, don't worry about it, just crack on guys and just get a conventional mortgage. Then you've got the second camp which says that no, conventional mortgages are haram, and you've got Islamic mortgages as an alternative. And Islamic mortgages, technically, they're not actually a mortgage. It's a home purchase plan where you're doing a shared ownership type thing, and I can explain how that whole thing works in just a second. And then you've got the third camp which says no, actually Islamic mortgages are also problematic because of XYZ reason, and therefore they're not, they're essentially the same as a conventional mortgage. And at this point, this third group, they've got two options. One option is that, okay, well, in case, because you think that Islamic mortgages are basically just a conventional mortgage, you actually end up saying, because of darura, because of necessity, we just go back to the first camp, which is, you can take out one conventional mortgage. Or they take the harder line approach, which is, okay, well, logically what this means is we can just rent, and all we can do is rent for the rest of our lives. So those are the kind of like three camps and where you can kind of end up. My thoughts on it are, having done a lot of reading around this area and going and talking to all sorts of people who work for Islamic banks and who don't work for Islamic banks, and reading through all of the contracts, line by line, my conclusion is that right now Islamic mortgages, by people like Al Rayyan or Gatehouse or Al Ahli or whoever it is, they are probably the best option for Muslims. And I say that without saying that these guys are perfect. I think there are issues. There are a few things that they do within their contracts that are less than optimal for sure. But I think overall, given the regulatory and macro perspective that we live in, and given the situation where these Islamic banks have to fit into this ultimately riba-based system, which the pipework of which is completely designed for conventional banking. Within that system, I think if you see where Islamic banks fit in, then you see that Islamic mortgages are probably the most palatable approach. But I'm not necessarily here to preach in favor of these Islamic banks without any kind of any drawbacks to them, because I think there are a few quibbles that I have. But where we are right now in 2021, that's my thoughts. Now, tomorrow, if in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, a really pure shared equity scheme came about that was also affordable, that also had billions of pounds behind it, which is the kind of money that you need for you to come up with an actually viable solution. If something like that came about, I'd say, actually, you know what, that's a better option. But right now, there isn't anything like that. So that's kind of my thoughts at the moment.
Wow, I just kind of got mesmerized by the last bit you said. I didn't even think of it that way. You need a good amount of money or gold behind that to be something actually effective, isn't it?
For sure. Like, I mean, if you just run the numbers, right? Let's take a £1 billion, what's that? 1,000 million,
Yeah.
and you divide that by, I don't know, in London, you're probably taking out a mortgage at least 300,000.
Yeah.
That adds up to 3,000 mortgages.
3,000 mortgages. Yeah.
There's 2.7 million Muslims in the country, so like 3,000 mortgages, it isn't actually that much, and
Scratches the surface.
that's £1 billion that you need just to give that out, and then that money isn't going to be coming back to you for 25, 30 years. So actually, to carry on going, you need another few billion to make it all work. And this is the reason, and this is, I think, the one, a lot of the nuance is lost by, I think, a lot of ordinary Muslims who don't necessarily come from a banking background, who don't see what's going on in the background. And when you realize this, you think, hang on, how are Islamic banks making any money then? And the truth is they weren't. They consistently ran at a loss until Al Rayan in particular, they got bought out by Masraf Al Rayan, which was the Qatari bank, which had a very large checkbook, and they just filled it with cash. And at that point, because they had a lot more cash, they could become a lot more effective in the way that they gave out the mortgages, etc. And then they started making a small profit. So there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, and it's a lot more of a macro, question than people often realize.
Yeah, yeah. You're reminding me all the reasons why I didn't go into Islam or any kind of finance. Look, I'll tell you this, yeah. I want to buy a car. It's 10 grand. Can you lend me 10 grand? They say, well, I'll tell you what, if that car breaks or something goes wrong with it, you need to chip in. So you put about 2 grand down. Okay, fine. Here's 8 grand I'll give you for the car, and I own a part of it. You're going to slowly pay me back. Fair enough. This becomes so much more complicated when you do those numbers and you start going into it and what's behind it. It's an incredible machine. And I think it resembles interest. It resembles riba. It's because riba was designed to become so complicated that the average person could not understand why they could never, ever come out of that hole, that debt. Yeah. Otherwise, I want to buy this. Can you lend me that? Yes, here you go. Buy that. Do you want me to give you anything back? No, because it's riba. It's haram. Just give me back my money. Because I don't need that extra bit of money. You use it for now. These institutions are turning it into a profit. Anyways, I made a comment that these things are not halal. Certain things are not halal. Not this specific thing you mentioned, but in general about money, etc. So a specific bank, I'm not going to say their name, head of the bank shows up in my office and calls me and says, we want to have a meeting and discuss. And I said, okay. I thought it was something sponsorship related. So anyway, they turn up, and it turns out that they actually want me to take back what I said and endorse them instead. They're like, we are halal, halal, halal. And I said, listen, I actually wouldn't mind opening my own account with you. And they're like, oh, so you agree with us, etc. And I was like, with what exactly? That we're halal? And I said, no. And then he said, well, you're going to open your account with us? And I go, because I have to. It's darura. I have no choice. I can either open it at one of these other big banks, or I can open it in yours. Yours might be a little bit better option. And I liked how you said earlier, it's the better option. Remember, the very pound note we have in our hand is not worth anything. So the better option to starving to death or harming our children is to use that pound coin and go buy some bread and some milk. That's the better option, that you use that monetary system. Using the money is the only thing that gives it any value. If people stopped using this money, and said, I'll keep it in the bank, it'd become worthless. You wouldn't be able to buy a fly with it, because people would stop taking it. They'd want only silver and bartering and gold. So this is a trick from shaitan without any doubt. And everyone needs to not forget that. I've got a comment on YouTube saying that these schemes are also, these Islamic mortgages are not halal, I would say. If it is, then why do they have to have a massive repayment at the end of the contract? That's a good question. Could you answer that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, let me answer that in just a second. I think you made a really interesting point about, how money is something that only has value because of the value we imbue within it. And you see that effect really visibly and very viscerally with the Bitcoin craze.
I think you're going to say Bitcoin, yeah.
And you can see that the only value that has is because of the value that we imbue within it, and so be it. But the link here with Islamic mortgages and mortgages in general is actually, if you look at the Bank of England, their analysis, and there's a great website called positivemoney.org, which I'd encourage everyone to check out, where they explain how 97% of our money supply is literally just popped into existence by banks. And the way they do it is by issuing mortgages, issuing debt. And obviously, every debt you need to pay back with interest. So that's where you get this constantly increasing money supply, constant inflation, and you see this, just constant bubble and boom and bust effect kicking in. So, I almost feel like sometimes when we're having these discussions about mortgages and Islamic banks, we're almost, we're having these discussions on the margins of the real problem. And the real problem is that the system as a whole, the way our money is created and how we do transactions, all of that is intrinsically tied with riba. It's intrinsically, like 97% of our money is not created other than through a debt-based transaction. But yeah, to answer the question, I didn't fully, I guess, understand the question, because typically the way these Islamic mortgages work
is more about, okay, we have a contract, the ijara, whatever it is, and at the end of the ijara, there's a repayment amount, a lump sum. That's the question. If that's there, we say it's halal, it's not interest. Well, then why is there a lump sum at the end of the contract? I didn't fully understand it either. The brother can potentially explain it a little more in a follow-up question if he likes.
Yeah.
But it was more about some contracts, you pay monthly, you pay it off, or whatever the contract agreement is, but it ends with a lump sum at the end. I mean, I could answer it as a layman to a degree, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably part of the contract. So therefore, it's in the contract, which means you paid monthly a certain amount. There was a lump sum remaining that you have to pay at the very end. Or you don't pay a lump sum, you break it apart in the months and you pay it within the monthly amount. The monthly amount goes a little bit higher. I really don't know. It depends contract to contract. But if you're asking halal because your comment was halal, yeah, your comment was that it's not halal. Of course it's not halal. You're talking about a monetary system that's not halal. Its foundation is not halal. Its creation is not halal. I mean, my God, the banks they start running out of things to loan out. They just go into the computer and type in a few more zeros. And they just extend their money like that. I mean, we do it in America. Whenever we feel like it, we create an extra 1,000 suitcases of dollars for the president to take to another country, spend how he likes, and comes back. And the bank account's still the same. He hasn't spent a penny. So yeah, this is how inflation's created. This is how you destroy economies. Anyways, it's a mind boggle. But how about student mortgages then? Sorry, we know mortgages are haram. There's Islamic finance, so there's Islamic mortgages. I don't like that word, but what about the student loans? Let's talk about that a bit, because mortgages we can carry on and on and on. I know that. But this is important to the youngsters that can't afford uni. They want to go uni.
Yeah. So my thoughts on this, and I like to be very careful about what I say about this, because I know it's a sensitive subject, and my strong conclusion is that my own brothers and sisters and kids, I would not want them to take out a student loan, because it is a loan. It says it in the documents. You're paying an interest amount on it that previously used to be linked to inflation, and some people could get comfortable around that because it was just linked to inflation. But now it is very much, you are paying interest, and it is a profit-based interest. Like you're actually giving a profit to the student loan company. So in my view, it is fairly clear cut that it is not permissible. I do appreciate that there is a difference of opinion on this, and some scholars suggest that the way that the student loan works, it's not technically a loan in the same way that the fiqh, fiqh al-mu'amalat understands a loan to be, and therefore because of that, it can be seen as permissible. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that for a whole host of technical reasons.
You're not sure you agree with which part? Sorry.
So some scholars, they argue that the student loan is not understood as a dain. It's best not understood as a loan because of various things, such as it is not given to the person directly. It is cancelled after a certain period of time. It doesn't kick in until you are earning over a certain threshold. So there are certain qualifying conditions around repayment, and because of that, the loan is not understood as a loan. And so very reputable and very knowledgeable scholars have that view. So it's not a view that we should discount or poo-poo kind of off the face of it. But ultimately, I think my view is along the lines of the views of people like Mufti Mangera and other very prominent scholars as well, who say that it says it's a loan, it acts as it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. And then once we've made that conclusion, what now? Because that's an easy thing to say, but then how do you go about solving this problem? And I think so we did a YouTube video on this a while back, and my view is that actually this is in many ways a bit of it can be seen as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you think about it that way. Because the first thing you can do is work hard and get a bursary. And there are many bursaries and scholarships available, and you can avail of them, and you should try and get them. The second thing is that you should try and take gap years before and even during your university time. And if you are clever about it, then these gap years can actually really boost your CV and make it much stronger. And you will actually stand out ahead of the crowd because of this. And not only that, you will also have paid a significant amount of your student loan off, or perhaps not even need the loan in the first place. And then I'd say, finally, you should work during university time, right? If you're, and look, I look back to my university time, and we're all young, and we're out with friends for the first time, possibly living away from home, and you might spend more than you perhaps should. But if you are are very careful with your spending, and you work and evening shifts and what have you, and actually show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are willing to go that extra mile to try and avoid this this debt, this loan, then I think that all counts in your balance. And then finally, without obviously being like a mufti and giving like a fatwa or anything, if you absolutely have to, then potentially there could be an argument made from necessity or what have you. But I genuinely feel that if people actually did everything else that I said, 90% of people, genuinely, I feel that 90% of people probably wouldn't actually need a student loan. Oh, and also, by the way, you should save. Your parents should start saving now, because even if they save like 50 quid a month from the age of about 1 or 2, and they just do that for about 15 to 18 years, that will pretty much cover your student fees anyway. So there's, if you've got young kids right now, just start saving. And
that's a tough one, because most families are not that disciplined to keep it there.
Yeah.
So you're talking about discipline. People who have lots of wealth or decent amount of money, putting £50 aside is not going to hurt them. So they can do that and they can forget about it. But people who live paycheck to paycheck, put £50 aside for 6 months, and then they're struggling the following 6 months, they start dipping back into it. So for the average layman, it's not really a solution.
It's hard, yeah.
But I will say, I have a completely different take on the whole thing. I'm not going to give you my take right now. I'm not important here, okay? But I've got a completely different take. So don't anyone out there take this as I've approved anything. No. So anyways, let's come back for a minute. So let me hit the nail on the head first, okay? These Islamic mortgages, this Islamic financing, halal or haram in your eyes? Straight.
Halal.
Based on what exactly makes it halal? Like a simple answer, not that long, complex one we just had, because I still don't know what the stance is. That's why I'm asking.
Sure. So I think it's halal because the fundamentals of the contract are that you buy, let's say there's 100,000 house, you buy 20% of it and you rent out the 80%, and then slowly you buy back that 80%, and your rent goes down over that period of time. And so the bank, instead of giving you a loan for 80,000,
the Ijara program.
Exactly, yeah. So they've got this, diminishing musharaka type agreement going on, which enables it to happen. Now, one key issue that there are with Islamic mortgages is I don't feel that they necessarily take on as much ownership risk as they should
They're
do.
not fair. They're not fair. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. They're not
And
fair, but they have the stronger hand. That's why they can do it, which is what interest is.
yeah,
Um, when a sheep is hiding, oh, sorry, a wolf is hiding in sheep's clothing. That's not the right example I want to give here. But the example I'm basically saying is if you have a stain on the carpet and you put a blanket over it to hide it, the stain's still there. And eventually you remove the blanket, the stain shows up again. But if you put another carpet on top of that carpet, is that stain still there or not? That's a question. You see, this is a deception of Iblis, because when you say it's halal, this is my opinion, by the way, not a fatwa. When any scholars, anyone say it's halal, we forget that the very foundation, the fundamental of it is haram, which is a money that has no value. You are upon riba. So this is what I said to those bankers that came to my office and said, well, why do you say it's not halal? We are the most halal. And I told them, I said, mashallah, I'm glad you're doing this. It's great that you opened this bank. I'll support you, etc. I said, so it's halal. I said, no, it's not. You can't say that. There is a lesser of two evils, and there is a greater good. There is a certain thing involved there. So long as that elder that I mentioned thought that mortgage was halal because of necessity, the most important part is that, look, you're about to leave this world. You're an elder. You should at least just repent and say that was wrong. And Allah is Ghafur Rahim. He's not going to count pennies with us unless we want him to. So don't insist on something you don't want. So anyways, coming back here to the halal haram aspect, is there anything else you can add to that argument you just made where you said it's halal because of these things? And I say, well, the foundation of it's haram, therefore none of it can be halal. Otherwise, we're putting carpet on top of carpet, and the next people that move into the house, the next generation, will think it's all halal because they can't see the carpet underneath with the stain on it.
yeah,
That's my concern of creating bid'ah. For me, that's the definition of bid'ah, is when you create something that the latter generations are going to turn into shirk or turn into something completely changing the religion. So if the monetary system's haram, we know that, the whole system of riba, and then we put a halal mortgage on top of it, and therefore we make everything about Islamic finance halal on top of it, don't we kind of forget that underneath everything's haram? What do you say to that?
I think it's a good question, and it's a tough one, because I think ultimately all this boils down to power, and who holds power in the world.
Right,
And
but you're taking it back to the philosophy of oppression, dhulm, and the greater of good, or the lesser of two evils, right? That's the direction you're going in.
I guess what I was saying was that the people who hold power and the global kind of structures that we have in place, they're the ones who set the rules. And the only way that we can create a new game to play is where we hold the power and we're the ones who are setting the rules. Apart from that, you kind of are forced to operate within the parameters of the game that you're playing. And we may not necessarily like the rules, but it's a sad reality that it is the way it is. And with that perspective, I completely would support anyone who would want to try and create a system alternative to the system that we have today, especially where the roots of where money comes from. I'm very supportive of that, but independent of that being created, what's the reality? Where are we living today? We are transacting in the UK with a regulatory system where all of us are using mainstream banks for our current accounts, and we transact every day with lots of companies, and the money there is also going through the mainstream banking system. Now, if we're operating in that system, then I think there's a lot of ultimately there will be some, I don't know, I don't want to say the word compromises, but there will certainly be some difficulties in getting the whole thing to work, because without going into too much kind of complicated detail, in order to create a bank, you have to talk to regulators, and they have to let you do something, and that means that they look at their rule book, which is set up for mainstream banking, and then they actually created specific new stuff in order to allow Islamic banking to exist. But there's only so much new stuff that you can create at the end of the day. After that, you have to plug into the pipework. And at Islamic Finance Guru, we run an angel syndicate where we invest in early stage startups. And as part of that whole process, we have to, we've had to talk to a lot of payment providers and get into the almost like the rails of what our world runs on these days from a financial perspective. And it really opened my eyes, because you realize that you might see a Rayan Bank or Monzo Bank or whoever, but actually in the background there's these 5 or 6 or 7 different companies and payment providers and AML KYC providers and various different jigsaw puzzle pieces that are put together. And most of the time, Revolut, Monzo, Starling, all these, like especially these digital banks, they're pretty much identical in the back end in terms of who they use. It's just the front and the branding and the marketing that's a little bit different, and the positioning they have in the market. But I guess the point I'm making is there's a lot more infrastructure that you just don't control when you're operating in a financial service system that is so massive and global, and you're like a tiny cog. So with that in mind, with all of that baggage in mind, I think that the Islamic banks and what they have done is I think a sincere effort at trying to do a good job. Now, having said that, are they stagnant? Are they progressing and going towards where they possibly could or should be going? That I'm not sure I could sincerely say that's true. I think perhaps Islamic banks could do better, and they could push themselves to actually.
I think that in that I don't think I got an answer, by the way, and that's okay. It's a tough one. I didn't get an answer, a clear-cut answer. Is it halal or not? And if we say yes, and we base it on those arguments, I think what you basically said in a nutshell was that it's the lesser of two evils. I don't think you said it's halal. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I think it's halal. Within the context of the game that we play.
It's halal. It's a halal thing to do inside a big room of haram. Yeah. That's what I mean. So it's the lesser of two evils, because its roots are all haram. There's no way it could ever be halal. It just can't. That's my not opinion. It's my belief. That's what I said to the brothers from the bank. And I said, how can I ever say you're a halal option? Instead, say you're the better option for Muslims who want to avoid riba. And I'm fully behind that in that sense. Because what choice we got? We don't really have much of a choice. A dhulm, oppressive situation, isn't it?
What are your thoughts on this, Sheikh? Like, it sounds like you've done a bit of thinking about this. Well, what do you think is like an alternative way of money that we could actually use?
I'll answer that question at the very end. How's that?
All right, inshallah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble. This is about you, not about me. All right, let's go to the next one. This is a good question. Okay, pensions. What advice do you give to Muslims regards to pensions? Are they worth it? What's the best type? What do you think? I mean, when our workplace puts us in, and what was that government things? What is that advert they put out? I'm in. Are you in? Or something like that. We're in. So tell me about that. Tell me about pensions. What do you say?
So pensions, in a nutshell, you put money away from your salary.
Mind people who are not working as well, by the way.
Yeah. So pensions, in a nutshell, is money that you put away from your salary, or you contribute to the national insurance. And the idea is that when you get to retirement age, 65, 67, whatever it is, at the time that you retire, you are able to call on that pension and live your life on that money. So a pension is pretty important if you want to have a good quality of life and just survive and just be healthy and not be cold over the winter when you're older. It's a pretty important thing, and actually, Muslims are shockingly bad at having a pension. Once the auto enrollment legislation came in, which says that basically whenever you start a new job, you automatically get enrolled in a pension. Once that came in, 70-80% of people then ended up having a pension, whereas Muslims are still around 30% or so. And to kind of make it really stark, if you are refusing your pension, the employer has to contribute to your pension. So what you are doing is you are giving away. You're saying to the employer, "Don't give me my full salary. Here, I know you want to give me some free money. Just don't give it to me. I don't want it. I'd rather just, not have that free money." For most people,
What was the last thing you said? They'd rather not have that money?
Yeah. So if you're saying, "I don't want to take,"
oh, sorry, yeah.
then your employer, and I am an employer now, right? At Islamic Finance Guru, I love it when people say we don't want to have a pension, because I know that means that we don't have to contribute to that person's pension. So for all employees out there, if you're refusing your pension, you're giving up free money, and that really adds up. And if you just invest a little bit from your salary every single month, that adds up to literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds, by the time that you retire. And the alternative is that the Muslim community doesn't do that, and that adds up to literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds over the course of 20, 30, 40 years. And given that we're already 44% of Muslims live in the 10% poorest constituencies, given that about half of us are in the poorest 10%, 10% areas in the UK, given that's our situation, I just don't think we can afford to, say no to pensions when, they are long-term so beneficial for us. And there are now Islamic pensions available as well. And some providers and some employers don't have Islamic pensions available. If that is your situation, then
sorry, what's the difference? A pension's a pension. Most people don't even know what the heck one is. They know money goes in and later they get some. So what's the difference between an Islamic pension and a pension?
Is a great question. So there's two kinds of pension out there. There's a direct contribution, a defined contribution pension, and a defined benefit pension. So also called a final salary pension. So if you work for the NHS or the public services, you will often have a defined benefit pension. What that means is they will give you a multiple of your final salary as a pension at the end of your working career, and that kind of pension is understood by scholars to be just part of your employment contract. Your pension is not actually linked to some kind of investment that you are directly linked to. It is just the responsibility of the NHS when you're 65 to give you that money. So that's a defined benefit pension, and that's seen as perfectly permissible by scholars. And the other kind of pension is a defined contribution pension, which is actually what most people have, because the private sector will use these often. And what happens here is they will use a company like...
Sorry. So the pension that the government has right now, the one that they force everyone to do unless they opt out, which one is that? The one you just explained, or the next one you're about to explain?
That's the defined... so this is the defined benefit one, where you are a public sector employee. So if you work for the NHS or you're a teacher...
Oh, sorry. Yes. So beyond that, beyond being part of the public sector, you're just an employee in a company and you are logged into this pension that the government put you in. So what's happening there?
Yeah, so this is a defined contribution pension. And what's happening here is it's also called a private pension, because the employer is saying, here's a pension provider we work with called Aviva or Legal in General or whoever it is, and they've got a whole bunch of funds. Off you guys go, and we'll just kind of point you in their direction, and that's where your money is going. And what happens to that money is it sits into various different investment funds. And these funds could be invested in UK companies, European companies, USA, wherever, global markets. And a lot of it will be in bonds as well. So, just straight up interest. And most Muslims, who have a pension, will probably not make any decision about their pensions because they don't know any better. And they will just be sat in the conventional pension option, where a huge chunk of their money will be based on interest because it's sat in bonds. And the other amount of their money will be in equities, which are not necessarily Sharia compliant. And so you will be, a whole bunch of your investments and your pension will be in haram, investments. So the alternative that you should do here is still take your pension, but just talk to Aviva or Legal and General or Scottish Widows or whoever it is, and say to them, can you just put it into an Islamic fund? And an Islamic fund, the difference is they don't have bonds involved, and an Islamic fund will make sure that they invest into companies that are Sharia compliant, and then your pension is Sharia compliant.
Sharia compliant. I just got to always be careful. I don't know why I feel like wool's being pulled over my eyes. Because everything when we say Sharia, that's the Sharia. So it's, I guess it's a model upon a model, or a model inside a building, I guess. It's hard to explain. But my heart it's not for myself. I'm fine. I know what's right. I know what it is. But my concern is the future, because they won't know about the stain on the carpet. And it'll just disappear because of what's compounded on top. That's my concern, which is why I think our languages needs to be refined. I don't think the language of halal mortgage, the language of Sharia compliant, I don't think that's the correct language. And I think that language is the blanket on top, the wool over the eyes, to make the future generations forget that this was on a haram system already anyway. Anyways, coming back. So the pension that you just described, okay. I think you've made a really good explanation. I hope you guys understood. I have a couple of questions through it already. Thank you so much, guys. Please, on YouTube, click on thumbs up. It's really important you guys support the page. There's like 1,000 of you and like 5 of you clicked it. Don't be so stingy with that. Click thumbs up, support the channel, or go to sleep. No, I'm joking. Click thumbs up and click subscribe, by the way. Some of you are not subscribed. The second most important part of joining us here, and a lot of you say, Brother Jalal, thank you. It's wonderful. We love it. All that wonderful compliments that you give, may Allah bless you. We do it for the sake of Allah. We don't even want thank you. But I do encourage you to do your part. Make a donation towards the dawah, or at the very least, share. Share the links. Invite friends and family. And a lot of you haven't done that. You come regularly Saturday, Sunday. To remember, by the way, I got to mention it. We are All Systems Go tomorrow morning with Sheikh Salim Al-Amri, 9 a.m. and then Sunday at 12 o'clock. And that's every weekend. If you've missed any previous sessions, they're all on the YouTube playlist in your own time. You can watch them and catch up. MashaAllah. It's still a good time to join, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. All right, I'm just going to go straight to the next bit. This is really important as well. Okay, so what's the stance on cryptocurrency? Because you mentioned Bitcoin earlier, and we may as well do this, right? We may as well bust that bubble. Did you get that pun?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Great.
we may as well bust that bubble. I like that one. Sorry. Anyways, is it halal? Should Muslims throw their money at it, or shall we stick to gold, buying gold? Which is another one we got to talk about. But go on, Bismillah.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think there are 2 questions to unravel here. One is it halal to invest in, firstly? And then the second thing is it a good idea? And the answer in a nutshell to the first one is generally yes, it's permissible. The answer to the second one is maybe. And so let me expand on that. So with cryptocurrency, the key the key question from a fiqh perspective is this something that can constitute a thing that has mal, and it is sufficient for us to imbue within it a certain amount of value such that we can buy and sell it, and it's accepted and it's transacted with, and most scholars, well, I don't know about most, but many scholars, especially the ones who care about mu'amalat, they say that cryptocurrency is permissible. It's like, it's like anything that has been given value to it, even if it is digital, it is seen as permissible. However, there is a lot of nuance here, because there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of cryptocurrencies and tokens and distributed ledger technology out there now, and it's not as straightforward as saying, Bitcoin is halal, therefore everything else is halal, because there are so many different technologies at play that you can't have a blanket rule. And I'm actually, working through right now the top 100 cryptocurrencies for Islamic Finance Guru, and just kind of going through their white papers and actually individually working out my view on each of them. And inshallah, I'll share that at some point. But going through that exercise has shown me that there's a lot of nuance here, and ultimately it comes down to what is the function of that cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency is this ecosystem which the cryptocurrency is a token of, and that makes that ecosystem work. Now, if you are just seeing that token is in isolation and don't look at the ecosystem within which that is given any value and within which that operates, and that ecosystem, for example, has been created purely for illicit stuff, like there are actually cryptocurrencies that are just completely linked to illicit things, then of course that is hugely problematic. So yeah, to come back to the question, the first question is it halal? Generally, yes, but you do a case-by-case analysis every single time. And if in doubt, ask a mufti, ask a scholar who knows what they're talking about, because this is a very, very quickly changing landscape. The second thing is it actually a good idea? Now, there, I think there's probably two things to consider. Firstly, is it going to make you a profit? And I think the answer to that is possibly over the long term, like 10, 20 years, if you hold it, I think it'll make you a profit. And actually, you might make some short-term profits as well. But it's such a high risk, high reward asset that you should only hold a minority of your portfolio in it, just because it could, literally tank, and you don't want to lose all your wealth. And we hear regular stories about people who lost a lot of wealth because they bought cryptocurrency at the wrong time, and then it tanked and they lost a lot of wealth that way. And the second thing to consider about when you're answering this question of is it a good thing or not is it actually adding any value to the world? Now, my view, I don't know what your view is on this, Sheikh, is actually similar to investing in gold. I feel like both of these kind of investments, they're fine as a nice, 5% of your portfolio, as a nice hedge and a nice kind of way of diversifying your portfolio. But is it adding real value to the world in a way that investing in property will? Property actually puts is a roof over someone's head, or a company that is creating something good for the world, and it's creating and solving problems for the world. So when you invest in that company, you're actually doing something valuable for the whole world as a whole. And I feel that our investments, our money, should be channeled in things that have real impact and have that potential to do, something that is going to solve a problem for Muslims or humanity as a whole. And that, I think, is far more impactful. And this is actually, why I do the angel investing side of things, because I feel that that's probably the most impactful thing that we can do with our money when it comes to investment, because there you're investing in early stage companies that are just really focused on the big problems the world has to face, and then trying to solve them. And most of them will fail, but some of them will succeed and become the next, Googles and whoever's of the world, and that will solve a real issue. So yeah, that's kind of a very long-winded answer to.
Oh, it was excellent answer. It was absolutely excellent answer. Tough answer, because should you throw your money at it? I don't know. I mean, people who did in the beginning are laughing right now.
Yeah.
How do they spend it? I don't know. Or how often can you spend it? How many places can you use spend Bitcoin or other currencies that are similar? I forgot what they're called. The second thing, anyways, I think it was a good answer. It's just, I think we can always use more clarity.
Someone here has said crypto is totally gambling because investors don't know what they are doing in case by case. Why not roll the dice?
So, well, this is what I was saying. I was starting to say it, but I didn't want to say it. So now a questioner saying it, so I'll put it forward. In the early days, someone went into crypto, and now they got loads of money. Now people buy into it, and it's very likely they'll lose money. But someone's got to lose money so that the other guys can make money. It's just how it works. And then eventually it'll go back up. So it's up to you how long you can hold out with your money gone. Point I make is, so this question is basically they're making more of a statement. They're saying it's a type of gambling. You're throwing the dice. It can go either way, etc. What do you say to that?
Yeah, sure. I think with gambling, right, you have the pure fiqh analysis of, are you buying and selling risk, or are you buying and selling an actual asset? So like, to use a horse racing analogy, do you own the horse and they win a prize, or do you buy and sell the risk of that horse winning, or the chance of that horse winning? And buying and selling cryptocurrency is definitely not gambling in the pure sense of the word. However, I do take the point that what people are engaging in from a purely emotional perspective can often be seen as gambling, and I think that is an unhealthy way of investing, full stop, because most people, 99% of people who gamble with a
What's that called?
What's that?
What's that called? There's a phrase for it in the market. The long term and the short term, the quick bursts. What are they called? It's a type of investment. Sorry.
Day trading.
Yeah, but it's a type of a trade. It's a type where you invest in something that's high risk, low risk. That's not it. There's another phrase for it. But the ones that are high risk, which means you put money in a couple of months, you need to make 10 times that amount, and you pull out. This is a type of risk that I remember a lot of scholars question. They think it's not ethical, or it's not correct, or it's not even halal. I don't know.
Short selling.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Short selling.
I actually don't know. No, that's not it. There's a phrase for it. And there's another type, which you invest in a company like Apple or whatever, and you wait long term, and you're always getting dividends. And they say that's an income. That's an investment in a company where you're getting an income. Whereas someone else is investing in a new Pepsi Cola or something, and they know it's going to skyrocket in 3 months and then crash in 6 months. Don't know, but they play that market. Okay, here's the word for it. They call this straight up gambling. So this is where that phrase comes from. People from the 90s and the 80s, the ulama, they said it is trade market, stock market, gambling, unless you're playing the long game. If you're playing the short game where you're just going in and out, in and out, in and out daily, I remember the scholars, they said this is a type of a gamble. You're hoping it'll go up, and you see it going up, the trend's there. So you're like, oh, I might make a quick buck. I'm going to buy it and sell it. So this was a type of gamble. So I know that this is where people are coming from, but I have to agree with the brother. It's not healthy, because you have to give yourself time to understand the whole thing. It's much more complex than what it was before. It's very different now with cryptocurrency. It's very different. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, that's gambling. Sure as hell feels like it. It's not, because you're taking a risk in this, and because the risk is intense and extreme, you might feel like it might be gambling. But betting on a racehorse is very different to cryptocurrency. I agree with that. It's beautiful. I hope you understood that, the questioner. Thank you for saying that. I don't mind some of the comments are very statement-like. I know. Yeah, it's conviction. Just be open-minded to be wrong. Most of what I said earlier and what I'm about to tell Brother Ibrahim later, he might say I'm wrong. I don't know, but I have my opinions on this whole thing. I just think, for me, it's more about the long-term effects are far more important to me. The after we die, grandkids, great-grandkids, them staying upon the Quran and Sunnah is far more important, to not lose and completely forget that we were trading in gold and silver, and that's what makes things halal. And that's why many countries are under all kinds of sanctions, because they refuse to trade with the dollar or whatever. And those countries know the value of gold and silver, etc. So we must not feel alone in this belief. There's many other countries that are in this. I'm going to ask you the next question. So kids, I mean, that's what this is all about, isn't it? My own self, my parents, my kids. So to invest in those things you were mentioning, like £50 a month, putting it aside for future, let's talk about proper investments. So when we talk about investments, by the way, please keep in mind, people who can afford to invest 100 grand, it doesn't even scratch their ear, or people that have to invest maybe £100, at a time, but they need to make some profit. What is the best investment families can make for the future of children, and what kind of savings should we be opening for? What kind of savings accounts, or what kind of savings should they have from now when they're 5 years old, 10 years old, up until they're much older?
Yeah. So the important thing here is that you want to try and avoid any capital gains tax, which can be from memory 20-28%, depending on what your tax band is. And the way that you can avoid that is by using a savings account called ISAs, or a broker account called ISAs. And you get junior ISAs in particular for kids, where you can just put that money away, and it actually locks that money away until they're 18, and that's when it gets released. And any profits that are made in that junior ISA over that period of time is completely tax-free. And the government do this because they want to incentivize people to save up. And then for everyone else, there's an ISA, which is not a junior ISA, it's just a straight up ISA. And there you have a limit of £20,000 that you can put into it, and it's tax-free money. Any profits that are made in that are completely tax-free. So those are the two things that I'd say that you should check out. The other, I guess, option is go for someone like a Wahid Invest, where you can also go for an ISA as well. And they are a robo-advisor, so they just automatically do all of the investing for you. So with an ISA, when you set it up, you still have to go in and choose an Islamic fund or something for the first time. Whereas with someone like Wahid Invest, they'll just do everything for you. And you just have to choose like what kind of risk flavor you want to go for: ultra aggressive, moderate, conservative, and everything else. They do it for you. In terms of, if you look at the most successful investors historically, the key things that they did was three things. They were consistent, they had a long-term mindset, and they diversified their portfolio. So they were consistent, i.e. they did small amounts of money, and they did it regularly, because that has a drip, drip, drip effect, and it really mounts up. And the snowball, when it starts rolling, it really mounts up. And then they had a long-term time horizon, so it wasn't short-term. And only if you leave things for the long term does it actually have a real impact. And then finally, you have diversification. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, because if you do that, of course, then if one of the baskets go up, then one of the eggs go up, then it's all over.
Well, let me ask you this. Sorry, go on. ISIS. Okay, ISIS. Do they have interest?
No. So it depends what you put into the ISA. So if you put something that is, if you put a bond in an ISA, then of course that will be impermissible. But an ISA is just a vehicle. It's just like this wrapper that you put around your money. And actually, what is important is, what you invest in within that wrapper.
All right, so brothers and sisters, I'm going to go straight to the questions. What I'm going to say now, I've got questions of my own. I think that's a bit unfair because this is your show, people. So I'm not going to ask my questions. I actually do have a couple of questions myself. I have my take. I have my answer for you in regards to what I think alternative and so on and so forth. I think parts are alternative. There are places that we can take alternatives, but not overall. The entire system, I think, unless you live like a hermit in a mountain and you avoid societies altogether, and then you trade with just what gold you might find or what you might have as possessions, and without doing that or creating communities like that, and there are plenty of them out there in the world. There's plenty of people out there like this, and having a very simpleton life and giving up the digital age without doing that, it's not really possible. But there are alternatives to scenarios, like, for example, student loans. Everyone's talking about student loans. I think there's a massive scam at play here, a massive, huge scam. And this scam was about 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 90 years ago. Yeah, about 90 years ago. It keeps going. And it started with colloquialism. This is after colonialism. It became colloquialism. And it's brainwashing Muslim communities to think, I don't want to make racist comments, but they are racist, some of these things, but never mind. Let's just go straight to the core, which was wealth, money. That's what people want. Marry this type of person, that type, class this, class that. Education was this, etc. And education came from the West instead of the East. Everything went upside down. So people in every country wanted to send their kids abroad to study or be this or be that, doctors, lawyers, engineers, not alim, not imam, not khatib, etc. These things didn't pay much. It was all about what paid most money. So that brainwashing has changed a lot since then. People are much more educated. But back then, our great-grandparents were quite brainwashed, and with a good heart, they wanted their kids to get ahead in life and not be like them, where they suffered and begged and were financially in difficulty, where the enemies of Islam rose up and the ummah fell down, and situations for Muslim countries around the world got worse with puppet governments, corrupt governments. The list goes on and on. All that stuff that's a massive topic no one wants to talk about, really. But it's a reality of our situation, why we're here, with the wahan in our hearts, our desire for dunya, our hate for the akhirah, etc., or the death, I should say. But all of these things are a big factor playing, and it's led up to a place where now you know better, you're given room to breathe, you have food on the table, you have a comfortable bed, you're not in the state of those people who were desperate and they went to like Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, poverty will lead you to kufr. So poverty drove people to do all kinds of things. We're not in that state, alhamdulillah, most of us. So we're in a place where we could just come out of that drunken state. So reason why I mentioned all of that, that is what took a lot of people to a place where they think every single person has to go to university. I had to say all of that in order to say this, because if I just started off with saying not everyone has to go to university, I think a lot of people get pretty upset and even hurt by me saying that. But now that you know the background to why everyone has to go university, it's a scam. Everyone doesn't have to go university. In fact, university is designed by a specific hemisphere brain thinking people, and it's designed for those kind of people. And the people who go to university and can study like yourself, mashallah, you studied in Oxford, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I'm sure that wasn't easy though, was it?
No, I think it
Yeah,
was.
I'm sure that was, I mean, I'm sure all the stories are true. And subhanAllah, what an honorable thing. My respect for you is, way up there, mashallah. It's hard work. It's not that you came from Oxford that I care about. It's more about the fact that you put in the hard work. It says a lot about your character. And I have a lot of respect for you for that. So having said that, that's you. I didn't go Oxford. I went somewhere else, somewhere you couldn't possibly attend. And that's just what we are, my brothers and sisters. That's the alternative. The problem is scarcity. The problem is scarcity. The problem is too many people want uni and there's not enough uni, so they can charge what they want, and we're trapped getting loans. And having said that, you don't need to go. Look at your skills. It's not for everyone. But if you're someone special and you're going to do something amazing, go university. And everyone in the family should chip in to make sure you get there. That doesn't mean everyone should go. So I think the first thing is to get over this thing that if I don't go uni, I'm a loser. Not true. In fact, there are far more successful people out there, depending on how you measure success. If you measure it by the amount of money you have, there's a lot of billionaires and even trillionaires that never went to university. And then you have the opposite. So you have people that are, if you measure that success by philosophy of life and philanthropy, subhanAllah, same thing applies. A lot of people didn't go university. So I think the uni loan situation, there are alternatives, career paths, lots you can do. Heck of a lot better than if you go uni, graduate with first, and then start working. You'd be in a much more difficult situation than if you just started from your age of 13, and the age we're in, digital world, for the next 100 years is going up. Okay, for the next 100 years, it's going to keep improving until it probably drives people into a robotic age and Terminator will have to come back and all that. Anyways, my point is right now, where'd you come from? My point right now is like not everyone has to go uni. There's many ways for you to succeed in the measurements of success. And the last thing I want to say is that it's designed a specific way. Don't be fooled. Don't be played by it. In regards to mortgages, I think that's a complicated one. That's a very complicated one. Is it the house you live in, the house you're moving into yourself? Is it renting? Is it profits? Are you increasing your business with riba? It's a difficult one. And then lastly, you've got Islamic mortgage versus a regular conventional mortgage. So that's the only thing I can really comment on. And that comment is go the Islamic route. Is it Islamic? Probably not. But it's better than what it is because they have the title Islamic, which means our intention is Islamic. Our intention is good. We pray Allah forgive us. And this is definitely the times where the dust of riba is upon the boots of every single person. There's a lot of things out there we just don't have, brothers and sisters. We don't have to have. There's a lot of things we just do not have to have. This is why mortgages and loans and things like this are so important to everyone, because I want what he has. This is a big thing that Allah tells us, and Allah loves us and advises us. It's not for everyone. That's my alternative. Not everything is for everyone. Allah knows best. So, Ibrahim, do you want to comment to that? Can I go straight to the questions?
No, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. All of that makes a lot of sense.
Really? Because I kind of lost myself for a bit.
No, I think the point about, and by the way, you know, the reason why I keep looking away is because as we've been talking, there's this enormous fire so we've got this garden patch allotment area behind our house. And there's an enormous fire that's getting closer and closer. It's still pretty far away. It's about 75 meters away. But my wife tells me that there's fire brigades now as well. But that's why I was looking out of the corner of my eye. I was like, that is a very...
It's getting awfully close, huh? Things are getting a bit hot in here. The subject's getting a bit hot. We're lighting a fire, aren't we? Is it a garden fire or is it a house on fire?
I think I don't know, but I think it's like, you know, you've got these allotments where you've got sheds.
Oh, right. Okay. So someone lit something and they probably went out of control. Yeah.
It is. Okay. So alhamdulillah, it's like, I think it's far.
All right, we're going to carry on as long as we can, ladies and gentlemen. And if his video cuts out, we know something happened.
Yeah. But no, I echo a lot of pretty much all of what you said about, especially the student loan situation. I think people completely overegg the value of university degrees, and there is so much good that you can do, and so much that you can get out of life without.
Well, it's a difficult one with family and parents putting peer pressure.
Yeah. I think we just need to start thinking differently as a community, and I almost feel like sometimes we have a lot of cultural baggage that is a little bit too excessive.
Okay. All right. So I've got a few questions. I'm going to get straight to it. I have a lot of classmates in university who are investing and saving the money they earn with these investments, for example, to buy a house, etc. Can we Muslims invest? Because I don't think there are any businesses that we can invest in like Apple, etc. I mean, I'm going to pass this question over to you, Ibrahim, but first of all, can you guys please reply with a little bit of clarification here, because can we Muslims invest in what? Because in general investment into Apple companies, because I don't think there are any businesses that we can invest in like Apple. See, it's confusing. What do you mean?
Like what are the ethical businesses, basically?
What can we invest in?
I get the question.
Okay.
So it's a good question. And companies like Apple, for example, there are issues because they've got their iTunes and they've got I think there's like Apple Music and various different bits and bobs going on within their ecosystem. So a percentage of their revenue will be coming from haram sources. Now, the way that Islamic scholars have approached this is because in this universe of companies, pretty much all companies these days, unfortunately, because of the system that we live in, have a small element of haram in there somewhere. Even if it's a whiter than white company, it will be banking with a mainstream bank and it'll probably be earning a small amount of interest. So even if it's completely pure, there will still be some interest kicking around within that, within the revenues of that company. And then often you will see, obviously just straight up haram stuff going on as well. So the way that scholars approach it is they say that the debt levels in a company should be below a certain threshold. So 33% debt to asset ratio is what they go off. And they say that the haram income must be below 5% of the overall revenues of the company.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so this, when they apply Sharia screens to a company, they by these characteristics. So, firstly,
I think I misunderstood. I kind of heard an answer similar to something that's floating around the internet about 3% alcohol is okay, or less than 5%, really.
I suspected that, given what you said before, I suspected that, this, you would have, you'd have this reaction to the point.
Wait. Hold on. Before you go judging me, all right? Hang on a second. I understand what is meant by that. I just couldn't help it. I smiled because I was thinking about the alcohol. Anyways, there's like five. Anyways, forget alcohol right now. But
And I think it's a valid response as well, and I'll explain why in just.
Go on. Bismillah, go ahead.
So the ecosystem that we have, the options of different investments that we have, particularly in the public markets when it comes to equities, you have some pure haram companies that you stay out of, and then you've got a bunch of companies that are Sharia compliant, that are approved. But even within that, the approval is that they have a low level of debt, their haram revenues are below 5%, and they are not doing anything overtly haram. And that's the reason why scholars have come to this position, and not all scholars obviously agree with this. The reason why these scholars have come to this position is that it enables Muslims to have an investment. And the reason why they have had to come to this decision is actually, I think the crux of the issue, and that is that there aren't that many Muslim companies, like pure Muslim companies from top to bottom, who are run by Muslims, owned by Muslims, and the company itself is properly managed as a Muslim company in the public markets. And the reason for that is that a lot of Muslim companies just don't necessarily get to that level of scale. And the reason why I love what I do with IFG.VC, which is the angel syndicate and investing in early stage startups, is I see that the potential is there. If you invest in a Muslim founder who creates the next big thing, the next like Google or Amazon or something that ends up becoming one of the largest companies in the world, in one fell swoop, you achieve so many different effects. Firstly, you achieve the effect of increasing the wealth in that person's pocket, but also the community's pocket. Secondly, you increase the power that the Muslim community has. Like, the amount of power that Google or Amazon have these days is immense. Imagine if a Muslim company created that. It is possible. It is very possible in this technology world where the costs of getting started on something are very, very low. And then the third thing that it creates is the opportunity for ordinary Muslim investors to actually put their money into these kind of companies that are pure Muslim from top to bottom. But right now, we just don't have enough of those very large companies that have got to that IPO and public equity stage for us to be able to invest in. And my hope is, inshallah, what we're trying to do with this whole startup stuff is that we are encouraging more Muslims and more Muslim founders and more early stage Muslim companies. And then that, over 10, 15, 20 years, that then creates more and more Muslim companies through and through that people can invest in with their investments as well when they go and put their money into pensions, which right now they can't do because there are none, or there are very, very few.
I don't know, because I guess that's kind of what you meant earlier about Sharia compliant when we're talking about loans as well, kind of, isn't it?
Exactly.
Not
like
really,
right now,
it's not really halal, but it's more like in this pool of muddy water, this is the cleanest we can get in this section here because we can avoid investing in certain types of weapons or certain tobaccos or certain alcohols, etc. That kind of, or what they call ethical investing. And that's what ethical is. For us, it's not about ethical, it's about Sharia compliant. And then after that, you can do even better if you like.
Agreed. I mean, that's exactly what's going on right now.
SubhanAllah. Okay, another question is it halal to bug a houd? I think they mean buy a house with riba. I couldn't help it. Is it halal to buy a house with riba when you live in a non-Muslim country where it is impossible to get a halal loan? Yeah, we kind of touched on this, but go ahead.
I wouldn't want to be the person who says go ahead and do that. I think it's one for
No, you can say it's haram.
yeah, like I think it's haram, but I think there are situations where, you know, if you
No,
talk,
you know what? To be sensitive, it's a tough one, my brothers and sisters. Let's all jokes aside, because it is difficult. Let me put it to you like this: how can I? Oh, wow, it's not halal. It'll never be halal. No one can ever make it halal. It'll never be halal unless Allah sends a prophet and another book to add to the Quran and change it. It'll never be halal ever. But if you're gonna do it anyway, like that's the thing we should say. A'udhu billah. People are gonna do it anyway. So if you're gonna do it anyway because you're like, I'm renting, I'm never gonna get out of this hole I'm in, I'm never gonna change things, etc. So let's question it like that. Is it? Oh, if I am gonna buy a house anyway on riba, and I live in a non-Muslim country where it is impossible to get a halal loan, I've already tried to get a halal mortgage, so this is the other option. I'm gonna say, since the Islamic finance groups are all about the lesser of two evils or the better of the two options, and now you've tried and you're not getting approved, but you can go down the road to some three-letter bank and they'll give you an actual mortgage so you can have a house, well, then that's the next step beyond. Wouldn't you agree? That's the next lesser of two evils versus having no house. So
yeah, that's the approach that, you know, people like Sheikh Qaradawi took on their fatwa, and you know, I see the sense of that. I think that two things to add
do
to
you
that.
agree with Qaradawi on that?
I ultimately, if you have really tried, then possibly, but I don't know. I think taqwa.
I've got an answer I give. Can I just make it easy? Because you're hesitating. You're like struggling with this. And you know what? Don't be embarrassed. I am too. I ain't got an answer. Can I just say what I think here? And I would love, you've studied this far more than I have, and I know you can probably shed some light on this. We struggle, and scholars have struggled, because really what you want to say is no, sorry, but it's a sad state of affairs. You don't want to disappoint someone. So can't we just say that if you do decide to do it, feel very bad about it all your life till you pay it off and constantly repent and hope Allah forgives you?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Also, one situation possibly where, you know, you might argue that it becomes almost a necessity is, you know, where you can't get anything Islamic, and you're living in a rented accommodation where rents are very high and it's really poor accommodation. And if you get a mortgage, that immediately means that you can afford a better quality of house, and perhaps, you know, you've got elderly parents, or, you know, you've got kids who might, you know, long term have illnesses because of that. In those kind of situations, and those situations do come up every so often, then I think it's a little bit easier to, you know, say that actually, you know what, this is the only way that you can long term, you know, guarantee your health or what have you. That would make me a bit more comfortable, you know, saying go down that path.
Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair. I'm gonna have to say, everyone's in the same boat. The scholars that are giving you the fatwa, they're in the exact same boat. And one of my elders who are badly affected by the bid'ah of thinking that it is halal because an imam told him so, and the imam was from Azhar, and he got credibility for that. And then he said that it is your first house to live in. It is a must that you have to. It's a necessity, therefore it's allowed. I feel that that imam was very sincere, very genuine, and probably needed to buy his own house. Therefore, he had to say that because he was going to do it himself. But more importantly, I would assume that his English was struggling. I'm going to assume that maybe it was the only way he could express what he was trying to say, is that you don't have a choice and you're in a difficult situation. So repent to Allah. That's what he should have said. Because remember, guys, the Prophet ﷺ said astaghfirullah more than 100 times in just one gathering, just in case I looked at someone wrong, I did something wrong, etc. So we are looking for we're trying to stick our hand inside a toilet full of feces and we're trying to pull out a diamond. It's not going to happen. It just isn't. So we have to just take our hands out and wash it as much as we can. We have to keep washing our hands. So we have to keep making tawbah. We have to keep repenting. It's not a situation that any scholar ever can really make halal, but it is a relief that people like Brother Ibrahim and others who are far more qualified, they've been, far more dedicated, I should say. And there's so many people that have dedicated so much time and energy. You were mentioning some, the cryptocurrency documents you're going to be reading and releasing soon. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Most people are not going to do that. So we're grateful to you that you're going to check it out and tell us what it is. My point I'm making is that we're all in the same boat, and these people of knowledge are studying the subjects, and they're coming back and giving us alternative solutions to make a halal or Sharia compliant situation, which isn't really halal, but it's cleaner than the dirty pond. And by being there shows our intention that if we didn't live here, and if we didn't have this oppression upon us, and if we lived in a place of trade of gold and silver, we would do it like this, according to this Sharia compliant methodology. So is that about right?
Absolutely.
Jazakum al-khair, Ibrahim. Here's another question for you, okay? So I haven't done zakat yet because my dad usually does it for my family. How much, or how do I start it myself? I.e., this person, I'm assuming, is leaving the house now. They're independent. Before dad used to pay zakat. Now I pay zakat. How do I do it? Dad didn't teach me, or I didn't ask.
Yeah, so National Zakat Foundation, they've got a whole bunch of pretty good introductory resources on this that you should check out. We've got some guides on our website as well, Islamic Finance Guru. Look in the resources section. But really high level, zakat kicks in, the obligation kicks in once you get above nisab. Nisab is best understood as when you get over 200 pounds, or according to some scholars, over 2,000, 3,000 pounds, depending on the gold or silver nisab that you take. But if you want to be safe, let's say 200 pounds. And then after that, you are now eligible potentially to give zakat as long as you hold that money for a full year. And on the date that the full year, the full lunar year has happened, you then give the zakat 2.5% on all of the cash and liquid assets and the debts that you're able to get hold of very quickly, and everything else. You give zakat on that 2.5%. And a lot of people, what they end up doing is, because they don't know when that zakat date kicked in and all that sort of thing, they just give it during Ramadan. And I think that's a fairly sensible approach as well. So what you have to do is just give your zakat, and the calculation itself, probably the best place to do that is the National Zakat Foundation. They've got quite nice calculators. Where it comes to business zakat, so working out zakat on business assets and investments, then we've got some resources on our website as well, which can help you navigate the way through that.
What's the website address?
IslamicFinanceGuru.com.
All right, so here's a little follow-up question to the same questions added to that. So, okay, does a wife have to pay her own zakat, or does the husband cover it? That's a good question, because you came from your house, your dad covered it, you didn't deal with it, and now you're in your house with your husband. Do you pay your own zakat, or does he pay the zakat?
So I think there's a difference of opinion on this. Zakat is actually one of those very interesting topics where, in all of the other pillars of Islam, the majority of things are the core things are completely agreed upon. And there are certain things that there's a bit of difference of opinion on. But with zakat, actually, some of the fundamentals are disagreed upon as well. And this is an example of that. My view is that it's probably best for the wife to pay that zakat to the extent that she can. And I appreciate that sometimes women may not necessarily have liquid cash to pay zakat with, i.e. they might have gold and silver and they need to pay zakat on that, but they don't actually have cash to pay that with. So if their husband wants to help them out in that respect, then of course that's perfectly fine.
Gold, I think, is the main thing, isn't it? For women, it's just gold. It's such a clever system. I mean, really, all dads and husbands work night and day all their life, so they can have a house and a car and whatever. It's really for the wife and for the kids. It's for them. And when he passes away, it all stays for them. And it makes sense that he pays the zakat, because it's all his wealth while he's alive. And the wealth that belongs to the wife is the gold, the silver, and the things that she owns, or maybe she owns property, I don't know, whatever she has. There is zakat applicable to that. after the nisab, and he can cover it. He can help her with it, or as I would advise, is that she should pay it, not because as a source of she should pay it herself, not as a, oh, why should he pay it? No, he can if he wants, but because it's your salah. So do you pray your prayer? Does he pray for you? It's your salah. It's your fasting. Does he fast for you, or do you fast? And zakat is something that, yes, if you're applicable to you, then that means you have the means to pay for it. If you don't have liquid cash, then you should sell gold. And one of the reasons why I encourage this is because when you sisters pass away, then that becomes a massive weight on you. That was wealth you just sat on while people starved to death. And that's just my attitude. It's me. Not everyone has to agree with it. Everyone's different. I'm very bothered by anything I've got in my closets, even a pair of shoes that I don't wear. I'm very bothered by this stuff because it becomes witness against you on the day of judgment. May Allah forgive us all. We have stuff in the garage, in the shed we forget about for years. It may be junk to us, but it's a value to someone. Even if it's £2 worth or £5 worth, it becomes something that you need to consider and think about. So gold and silver and properties, if you don't have liquid cash, you need to sell a tiny bit of it. It's 2.5%, such a small amount. If you think of how much you have, that's better than holding on to all of it. And then, that act of worship, just the fact that your husband or someone pays for it. The best example I can give you is your father paid zakat. The boys as well. The same applies to boys. Your dad paid zakat all your life. And now that you come out of the house and you're on your own, it's the first time you're praying salah, basically. It's the first time you're doing this act of worship yourself. So it's out of sight, out of mind. Part of zakat is to feel the purification, as zakat is tazkiyah. It is a purification. It's not a tax. So to pay it yourself is important. Even if your dad gives you the money or your husband gives you the money and then you pay it, you should still do it that way, because you should feel it in your hand and you should feel it going, because it's an act of ibadah. It's a beautiful act of worship to pay the zakat. On how much gold is zakat applicable?
Oh, good question. So
Should we leave that to the calculator, or do you want to answer it?
So I think National Zakat Foundation, they have like a live nisab that you can check out, but it's roughly around the 2,500-ish mark. So yeah, I think if you just Google it, you'll probably find like a live indicator that'll tell you. So you have to work out
anything above that, you pay zakat, yeah?
Yeah, so it's 87.48 grams of gold and 612.36 grams of silver. And the two amounts give you different nisabs. So the nisabs are approximately, I'm just on the Islamic Relief website, for gold, it's around 3,900 right now because gold prices have gone up. And for silver, it's £240. So you could, and be very comfortable and sleep at night if you don't give any zakat, if your assets have not gone over 3,800. But if you want to take the more cautious approach, then you would give zakat on assets over £240.
Okay. Here's another one. If I want to buy to let, how do I do this in a halal way? If I buy on mortgage and rent them, the renter is paying the mortgage, technically not me. Is this permissible?
No, because you're responsible for the payment of that mortgage. And the renter is just giving you the money, and then you might be using that to pay the mortgage, but it's still you on the hook for the loan. Islamic banks do offer some Islamic buy-to-lets, so you can look into that.
Jazakumullah khair. I think that's also that same. I think that understanding or that answer comes from the other fatwa relating to credit cards. I'm going to get a credit card, but I'm not going to use it for interest. And the scholar said it's haram because you signed a contract saying I will pay interest if needed be. So you're agreeing to interest even if you're not paying it. The agreement itself is haram. I think the same applies to insurance, where many people think that insurance is, we have to have insurance. It's one of those things. We're back to that dirty situation. But insurance is something that you are signing a contract. If this and this happens, then you'll take care of it. And the reliance becomes upon this company to pay instead of reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many ways. So the scholars have an issue here. So I hope that to buy to let means business, means profit. So really, you should really do business with what you already own. You shouldn't go to interest to increase your business income. But yeah, Asians, we're our people. We're really good with buy to let. That's a really big business thing there. And interest made it very easy for us, for our communities. So we have to fight that desire. Difficult. It's very difficult. Brother says, isn't it better to trade in the markets, buying and selling in trade market with the deposit money of mortgages? Oh, I get what he's saying. The money you've got to make a deposit for a mortgage. This is what he's saying. So you've got money to make the deposit on a mortgage. He's saying instead of getting a mortgage and giving that deposit, use that money to increase the funds gradually. Same with savings as well. If you have savings as well, throw it in this pot instead, where interests are involved. So instead of doing saving account with interest, bring that savings over here and do it in buying and selling. And obviously you need to have some experience in trading or find someone to help you with trading. But so this is what he's asking. Wouldn't it be better to do this?
Yes, potentially if you're good. But most people who trade do it kind of half-heartedly, and that is only a recipe for you losing money. So if you're going to trade, then do it with real dedication, as if you're going to do it like a day job. That's the kind of level of commitment that you need to have in order for you to find the edge, because you're competing against people who do it for a day job and they have access to all the data in the world. And you are going into the market and you're saying, I'm going to beat these guys. The only way that you're going to do that is by being seriously good and also just doing a lot of research. And on this point, actually, this is not the question, but it's probably relevant for a lot of the audience. Forex trading is not permissible, and you should stay away from that.
Okay, I think that was the next question, was relating to Forex trading. So, okay, you said it. Forex trading, not permissible. Brothers and sisters, I'm just going to quickly ask you for, please click on thumbs up. You haven't done it, please do that. You need to log into YouTube to do that, by the way. So make sure you just create an account if you don't have one. Support the dawah. Click on thumbs up. Click on subscribe. And also, please make a donation towards the dawah. How do you make a donation? Someone asked earlier. The way you make a donation is you drop us a text message to the phone number 07958 183 184. Can I ask one of you to please be nice enough to type it? Whoever puts it up, may Allah reward you, give you Jonathan Firdaus. The rest of you don't want Jannah, don't type it. It's up to you. But type it in the YouTube group and in the WhatsApp group. I'm absolutely exhausted. No, it's not. Yeah, now it is. But generally, I've always said it, and then I look and it's not posted. I'm like, wow, there's like 100 of you sitting there, and not one of you thought, let me type out that number. Yeah, I'm texting. I'm a bit crude on the outside, so apologies, but I can't help it. What in the heck, man? Use your fingers, type on the keys, put the phone number up so someone else can benefit. Anyway, so that phone number, you drop a text message if you want the rewards of this dawah as well. Obviously, the dawah is poor and rich based on you and me. If we invest in dawah, it looks rich, it looks great. If we're all stingy and tight with our money, the dawah gets poor and skinnier. It's up to us. This is the word of Allah. You look at the kuffar, they spend upon their kufr. They believe in their kufr more than Muslims believe in the truth. It's incredible. So it's all about who spends on what more. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said, not me. He said, "As-sidq, it is proof that you believe in your kalima." So if you really believe in Allah and His Rasul, you would spend upon the deen. That is what he said clearly. So when you look at the kuffar and you see the people upon kufr, upon jahiliyyah, you should see the kind of money that atheists spend on atheism and trying to encourage people to let go of all religions and give up God and even insult God. Anyways, putting that aside. So if you'd like to donate and contribute, more important, forget donate, invest. It's your akhirah. It's our dawah, our beautiful deen. We should support it with everything we got. But please do click thumbs up. Please subscribe. Next question. If you have any questions, please post them. I'll get to all of them. I promise. I won't ignore any of them, inshallah. Next question is car insurance. I think we covered that, didn't we? Did I skip that one? Car insurance. I think I actually skipped that one. Okay. Is car insurance halal or not? Let's just go ahead and ask it.
It's the law of the land, isn't it? So
it's what? Sorry?
The law of the land. So it's a moot point, really.
Wait. Is it halal? Is it haram?
So the mainstream view is that it is haram to have insurance generally.
But
because of the fact that you have to have it to drive a car, and driving a car is usually seen as a necessity, it's it's allowed.
So then don't drive a car, take the bus, take the train. Nobody's putting a gun to your head telling you to drive a car.
I think most
I listen to this. I'm teasing you. I was in Houston. I was at the masjid, right? And this topic came up, and someone actually said it to the sheikh, exactly what I just said to you. Okay, it was an awkward moment. He goes, "Well, I know a brother who takes the bus everywhere." And by the way, in Houston, there's literally, my God, it's like no public transport. Forget it. It's like buses are only that main road, and it takes you more than an hour and a half to walk to it. Any main road. It's quite difficult. So public transport is very hard, especially in Houston and other cities as well. So this guy said this brother travels everywhere by public transport, doesn't want insurance, doesn't want haram. And the imam said, "That brother has much more iman than me." That's all I can say. I pray to Allah, ask him to forgive me. I'm not saying it's halal. I'm saying it's necessity, darura. And out of necessity, and in fact, the imam was very clear, and I love the way he explained it. He said, "Don't for one second think it's halal. And for me to make sure that you know it's haram, let me be very crystal clear. It's not just the other option or the lesser of the two evils, etc. In fact, it's worse of the evils, but I'm saying we have to take it because the worst of the evils is not having insurance, because what will happen if you don't have insurance? Nothing. But what will happen? You'll get your license taken away. Eventually, you get your car taken away. Eventually, you might end up in jail if you have to use a car, etc. For those reasons that your family has to do without you because you're in jail, because you killed someone or hurt someone with no insurance, for those reasons, no, just buy the insurance, knowing it's haram, and ask Allah to forgive you and protect yourself. But this downward slippery slope, you start buying other insurances. I think I'm going to get this insurance, and I think I'm going to get that insurance. This is where you've no longer done what's the lesser of two evils, but you've gone into, come on, let me get a bigger payout if anything happens. Let me get some better protection. You know, I have tawakkul in what are they called? Aviva, mashallah, that kind of thing. I becomes your Lord, a'udhu billah. And anyways, moving on. I'll take the next question, inshallah. I think we're in agreement, right, Ibrahim?
Yeah. I mean,
you pretty much said it in a very polite way. It's not halal, but it's the time. You end up in jail. You end up in a lot of trouble if you don't get insurance.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be said that I have. This is one of the views where I have a fair bit of sympathy with the minority position on insurance, but probably now is not the time and place.
What's the minority opinion?
The minority opinion is that it is permissible in many cases because it's better understood as it's acceptable for a whole variety of reasons. But I think the majority view is different, and I think even though I might have personal views on this, I think the important thing for the Muslim community is to look for the majority.
Yeah, it's a good one. We have to come back to that, okay? We got to talk. Isn't it better? Okay, we did this one. Yeah, I did skip that one. Okay, I'll move on, guys. Sorry, I've caught up now. I was a little bit lost there. Is trading in the capital markets halal? If so, then which ones are halal? Stock, shares, FX trading, commodities, digital coins, etc.
If you are rules of thumb are that if you are trading in the actual thing itself, so actual equities.
Okay, we're buying Bitcoin, buying stock, buying shares, then selling them on as a day trader.
So there's a difference of opinion on that with day trading in particular, because of the point you made earlier, Sheikh, which is the gambling aspect, and also because
that's it. The day trader and the long trader. What's the long trader called? Carry on. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So with day trading, the other issue is about qabd as well. So do you actually take possession over the shares or not? And with the UK stock market, you have a T+2 settlement. What that means is you don't actually get the shares until 2 days after you buy them, and that means that you are buying and selling something that you don't actually own. And of course, there's that famous maxim, "La tabi' ma laysa indak," don't buy and sell that which you do not have. which, you know, some scholars say that that would mean that day trading becomes problematic. So there are a few issues with day trading. The other, that's not to say that it is impermissible. You know, I think this is an ongoing discussion right now, because you know, it's quite a big statement to say, you know, you're not allowed to day trade. The other point to consider here is you shouldn't be engaging in the transactions involving CFDs, contracts for difference, or derivatives. And so anything where you've got like binaries, options, futures, forwards, swaps, CFDs, anything like that, where you're not actually owning or transacting in the underlying thing itself, but just as financial instrument, just you know, a document that says that you will get a return that is linked to something else, but the actual thing is not actually being bought and sold. That is not permissible in Islam, because you're not actually buying and selling something that has substance.
Right.
And there's a lot of that going on, a lot of CFD, a lot of binaries. You see a lot of ads around that. And leverage is another key word that comes up a lot in this stuff. If you see leverage stuff online, especially, most of it is not permissible.
Somehow I've missed a couple of questions, but they're coming back. Sorry about this. Okay, so mature adults who go to university and they don't have the intention to work after the degree, so they don't need to pay the loan back, and so they have no need to pay the interest either. So would you encourage that the Muslim ladies who sit at home to go and learn and specialize in a degree which then they could use for dawah work, which means they sign a contract of that student loan, but they'll never need to pay it back because they're never going to get a job? I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, I think that is what they're asking. And I honestly don't know the right answer to this. My gut instinct is that, you know, if you're going to go to university, then for vast majority of people, they will want to earn a salary above £25,000 eventually. So it seems a bit counterproductive for the vast majority of people to use that argument.
Yeah, I'll answer it for you. Okay. Watch YouTube. If there's a skill you want to learn, get it off online. You don't need to go to university and go through those long, boring, long classes. You realize university takes a piece of education and stretches it like a piece of string, like you cannot imagine, and puts so much waffle around it, exams and words that you never needed to know for that skill, and they drag it on. Really, you just needed to know how to, you know, use a drill, for example. So if there's a skill you ladies want to learn, absolutely. Take those courses online. It's much better. But university, to take a loan, to sign a contract, to agree to pay to interest, that is haram. That was what's haram. Not when you pay, how you pay if you never pay. So I would say no. I would have to say no. But you can seek that knowledge and you can learn all that. If it's just learning, everything that's in university is online. In fact, one of my favorite institutes I really support is the Khan Academy. I love what it does. And subhanAllah, this vast majority of these courses and classes you'd attend in uni, it's there. It's been uploaded. You can watch it. You can pretty much get a degree on Khan Academy just without a physical degree. In fact, you could learn the degree on Khan Academy and then go to university and take exams. You could do that as well. People have. So, the whole ethos of Khan Academy is that things like it is designed that the whole world, no matter what village you're in, you should have access to the same exact education or knowledge that a person in a very wealthy neighborhood has. Because the knowledge should not be expensive. The degree can be expensive, but the knowledge should be free. That's the attitude or the ethos of these philanthropists. And anyways, so let's go to the next one. I knew someone who was paying rent at the rate of £600 per month for the property, but if he bought it, it would cost him £300 per month with a mortgage. Is it halal for Muslim landlords to charge so much where they're making 100% profit?
It's market rate, isn't it? So if someone is charging you from a purely fiqhi perspective, if you're agreeing to a rent and you're consenting to it, then you only have yourself to blame. And if it's an exorbitant price, then of course, you might have some recourse. But as long as it's the market rate of rent, you can't, really do anything about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's well put. How about this? The guy who bought that property had 200 grand, 300 grand, could have done this, could have done that, didn't do it, sat back, waited on that house. Now he owns it, and you're telling him you're charging me too much. And if you look at, half that rent, I mean, think about how much he spends on that house, the rates, the taxes, or what else is there? Upkeep, fixing it up. There's a lot of stuff. So it's not as simple as just charging. But yeah, it's all about market rate. I agree. So it is halal if you wanted to go above the market rate. If you wanted to, he can. It's his house. He can do what he likes. And the jealousy aspect, because that's where this question comes from. Not from you who asked, but the root of these questions, the jealousy aspect. Why does he get to have it, etc.? The Sahaba had the same issue. And the Prophet ﷺ said, what can we do when Allah chooses to give to some, not to others? This is risk, and it's an imtihan, it's a test. Question here: should we say it is haram to people who already did the mortgage, who are already in the house, like friends and family? I feel like someone needs to tell them the truth, or should we keep ourselves and mind our own business?
There's that famous hadith, isn't there, about either you stop it with the hand, or you use your tongue, or you stay silent. So it kind of depends on how your relatives are going to respond as well. And whether or not what you think, what the most effective way of bringing about a good outcome to it would be. And I think a good outcome in that situation is they either switch to an Islamic mortgage, or they accelerate the payment and get rid of the debt, full stop. That's the outcome that you're looking to achieve. Whatever you think is the best way to do that. It might be talking to the younger kid, it might be talking to the wife, you might be talking to the parents, or might be talking to the person directly. Whatever you think is best, do that. And if you think all this is going to cause is just massive dispute in the family, then perhaps it makes sense to stay silent.
And hate it in your heart.
Yeah, and hate it in your heart.
So when the brother said stay silent, that was actually coupled with hate it in your heart. So you can't stay silent. Your heart has to hate it still. Right. So here's my advice on this. Okay. My advice on this is that you should tell them. But it doesn't benefit anyone if you cause problems. It really doesn't. But it harms you if you don't. And it harms them if you don't. So therefore you should. So you're like, well, what are you saying, Jalal? I'm saying be nice. Say, listen, I'm not here to judge you or anything, but I just need to tell you some hadith about interest. You're in mortgage. You need to get out. Pay it as quick as you can. Oh, that's what I'm doing. Everyone says it. That's what I'm doing. Great. That's it. Let him out. That's the door. Let him out. They've said it. They say, I'm going to do that. Great. Don't push it now. When you start saying it and you mention it with love and you say, so get out as quick as you can, most people say, yes, I want to. It's what I'm doing. I'm paying it as fast as I can. That's good enough. But you do need to say it. And when you say it, also say this. When you tell them how haram it is and the punishment of it if they don't know, do you need me to tell you? Do you not know? Do you want me to tell you what I've read, what I found? It's up to you. I'm going to leave this book for you and leave it there. It's up to you. And if you can get that information out, just say this. More important than getting out faster out of this mortgage, more important is that you know it's wrong and that you repent. You don't want them to die thinking they did something right and good. That is the most important aspect of the situation. So when you say, should we tell people who are already in it? They're the ones you should tell, because people who are not already in it is a difficult one, because you don't want to discourage them and put them in a rent situation where they're broken, financially hurt. Same time, you don't want to encourage a mortgage. You don't want them going into mortgage. So you just stay out of it. And if people are in it, then you have to tell them that, at least be ashamed of it and embarrassed in front of Allah and make tawbah. And, this is what we should all do. We should not treat it like it's something permissible. That's the most important thing. With that, I've got one last one here. In regards to insurance, I usually buy a extended guarantee for small items, electrical items such as iron, food processors, etc. And this usually helps me. I benefit from this service. Is buying extended guarantees on such items allowed?
On the mainstream position, no.
It's a tough one, okay? Because that's even tougher, isn't it? That's tougher. It's easy to say, but that's a tougher question, because it's almost like we're being strict. Okay. Would you steal a car? No.
No.
Would you steal lots of money? No. Would you steal a chocolate bar? Probably not. Would you steal a packet of gum? No. See, you hesitated. Would you steal a piece of gum? Maybe.
Yeah.
And when you pick that piece of stick of gum up, you're like, it's worthless. Who am I robbing? A pencil. It's not worth much. So who am I robbing? So how much is your iman worth? Is it worth 100,000 pounds you rob out of a bank? Or is it worth a stick of gum that you're willing to trade your iman for a stick of gum or a pencil? This is a trick from shaitan, making us think that value makes a difference. It doesn't. The size of a mortgage versus an extended warranty on something. Now, there is a majority opinion on this that they say I'm not quite sure they gave it enough time to study it, but that's my guess, because it was given at the same time. It was roughly at a time when extended warranties were not as complex as they are today. They're very different today. So I think I don't know is what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say that my feelings are more towards the minority opinions on this, simply because it's a guarantee of an item. It's not insurance to pay you out. It's a little bit different. So someone says, look, you paid £100 for this item. Tomorrow you could buy it on sale 50% off and you buy it cheap, etc. Someone else says, well, you bought it full price, so therefore I'm going to give you a longer warranty. The person who bought it a half off, I'm only going to give 3 months warranty. It's the same as paying for an extended warranty. So it's a little bit different to insurance. Insurance is if something breaks, someone steals it, someone breaks it, someone robs you. The insurance covers the house, covers the car. These extended warranties are a little bit different because it's the manufacturer, the company owner that give you that extra bit of peace of mind that if it breaks in this time, I'll give you another one. It's not necessarily the same as insurance, is it?
Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. I thought they were asking about the additional bells and whistles you get on an insurance policy. But yeah, when you talk,
it's insurance on small items and extended guarantees.
Yeah, so I think that depends on the paperwork. Like some of these are just insurance policies, but then some of these are much more like service contracts or they're giving you like a bit of a bonus as part of trying to sell you this fridge. That is, obviously not that, controversial. But when it looks a lot more like insurance, then obviously, you might have some issues there.
Right. With that, I'm going to call it a night, brothers and sisters. So what's the academy you keep talking about? Somebody's asking. Could you please spell it out?
Khan Academy.
Oh, is that what they're talking about? I thought they were talking about your academy or your website. Sorry. Yeah, the Khan Academy. KHANACADEMY. KhanAcademy.com or .org. Just Google it. It'll come up. It's quite popular. Right. With that, let me just check one more. Okay, I'm going to say good night here, guys. Thank you so much. Please contribute. Make a donation. Didn't get a single text from any of you. We must have had a terrible show. You don't want to support it. May Allah bless you. I'm so sorry. Next time we'll try better. No. I'm just joking. May Allah bless you guys. I know there's at least 2 of you that just made a contribution because you do that every week anyway. But everyone else, I implore you, I ask you to support the dawah. It is starving with COVID situation. The dawah has starved. There's been no events. There's been no calling, but the rent for the storage, the warehouses, the mail, all that stuff we do, it's all still going on. Some of it we've had to stop, but the things we can stop are things like the lights on in the building, the bills, etc. They're still there. And so we do need some support from you guys to plan next year's Eid. In 2021, if they do allow us to hold events, it's going to be a massive Sunnah revival, and we're going to need support, a lot of it. So please consider contributing a monthly small amount of £5, £10, anything you can on a monthly basis. Set it up. Right hand gives, left hand is unaware. So set up the standing order and forget about it. Text us, let us send you the bank details, set up the standing order, forget about it, meet it on the day of judgment in front of Allah, and rest assured the people on the team are all volunteers and they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the deen that we're serving, so they want good deeds, and your money is going to be stretched and spent in incredible ways as we always have done. So may Allah bless you all. Brother Ibrahim Khan, my brothers and sisters, if you want to contact him directly, please go to the website. What was the website again, Brother Ibrahim?
IslamicFinanceGuru.com.
IslamicFinanceGuru.com. So I want to thank you, Ibrahim. It's been an absolute pleasure, an eye-opener, and a topic I really don't like talking about, but it's an important one. It's a very important one. It's a boring topic. It's not one of the topics that talk about, jihad and, khilaf. I know I'm joking. It's also definitely not the Ramadan topics and Tawheed topics and getting closer to Allah. But subhanAllah, let me tell you something. My father is the reason why I am who I am. And my father doesn't brag about anything like he brags about everything he ever had was halal. So having halal has throughout history been bragged about by ulama as to be so important that it can infect your house and your bloodline if it's not halal, and so much more. So this subject is crucially important for us to know, that everything coming into our home is halal, protected, blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibrahim, I'm going to give the final words to you, inshallah. Bismillah.
No, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our rizq pure and to guide us to the straight path, and to make sure that we use our energies and our wealth and all of our resources in a way that when we're asked about them on the Day of Judgment, we can at least say with good conscience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we deployed them in a way that was for His pleasure.
Ameen. May Allah accept it from all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it all. Jazakumullah khair to everyone for all your questions. Please do write us some feedback. Give us reviews. Say things like, you were great, you were not great, didn't like this, didn't like that, could improve on this, could improve on that. Any feedback at all, we would love it. And if you benefited and you liked it, obviously we want that feedback. We want to encourage other people to join. We want to spread the word. And please take clips of these videos, post them up online, tell people that about the channel, and get them to come in and join us every Friday night, 10 p.m., different guest every Friday. And also Saturday morning, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Sheikh Salim Al-Amri, bright and early, Fundamentals of Tawheed, incredible lectures last weekend. I'm telling you, I was just blown away. It was so amazing. It really was amazing. He said things that he really put himself in a hot seat. Like, he really just did not hold back. And he's one of those sincere people that once he gets into the topic, he just doesn't care what's going on. He just got to say it like it is. He's an amazing Sheikh. May Allah preserve him. Then Sunday, 12 o'clock noon, Sheikh Salim Al-Amri on Matters of the Heart. And that is all about the hadith. In the body is a morsel of flesh. If it is sound, the whole body's sound. If it is corrupt, the whole body's corrupt. And that is the heart. So he focuses on matters of the heart, on how to cure ourselves of all these diseases. Without further ado, brothers and sisters, I wish you all a wonderful evening. Please follow me on my TikTok. Oh, by the way, guys, if you do TikTok or you know anyone on TikTok, join me there. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I do kind of copy and paste the videos because a lot of you don't like TikTok or you don't want to get on TikTok. Actually, you know what? I don't blame you. It's quite an interesting place. I get in there, post my video, and get the heck out of Dodge, as they say. But on TikTok, I've got this challenge. I like the app. It's really cool how it controls videos. That's why I'm using it. But basically, I've got this challenge of 99 names of Allah. We had 99 days until Ramadan. Every day we memorize one name, one attribute, sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are now on day 12, I think. Just now this evening we posted the 12th name. So you could easily, in 12 minutes, 13 minutes, memorize 13 names. It's not hard. If you just watch the 12 videos, the 12 videos that are uploaded right now, if you just watch them one after the other, watch them 2-3 times, you'll memorize those attributes. It's not difficult. Inshallah. And Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Qudus, Al-Salam, Al-Mu'min, Al-Malik, Al-Qudus, Al-Salam, Al-Mutakabbir, Al-Bari, Al-Khaliq, and Al-Muhaymin, Al-Malik. So those attributes are already done. So we're going to move on to the next attribute tomorrow morning, inshallah. So please do follow. If you want to take up that challenge, you're going to feel great. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, whoever, Allah has 99 names, 100 minus 1. Whoever memorizes them, he will attain Jannah. So that is Sahih Hadith Bukhari. It's worth memorizing the 99 names of Allah. And if you want to do that, let me know, inshallah. With that, I have nothing else to say except I love you all. Wish you all the best, and I leave you in the care of Allah. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning, those of you who are going to join us. Otherwise, next Friday night. Ibrahim, again, Jazakumullah khair to you and your family. Ibrahim, do you have a cat?
No.
Do you have a baby?
Yeah, 2.
Oh, I thought it was a cat meowing earlier. It's a little baby we heard, mashallah. Is it a boy or girl?
Girl. She's 6 months.
Allah bless her. Mubarak to your family, mashallah, tabarak. Allah bless her. I heard her little voice, and please make dua for Brother Ibrahim and his family. Barakallah feek, akhi. I look forward to speaking to you again soon. You have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Fi amanillah. From myself, from the Al Fitra team, from Abdurrahman behind the scenes, who made all tonight happen. Most people don't know he's holding the strings and the wires, keeping us connected to the internet. So he's sitting there, is doing all of that. The sisters who are controlling the questions, making sure I had them all in order. So I read through all of them. And of course, you for tuning in, watching, and sending the questions. Love you all for the sake of Allah. I'm very grateful to every one of you for giving us the opportunity to have this reward. Fi amanillah. Have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow, inshallah, or till next time. Until then, fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
سبيل الدموع سبيل